Hello there folks, and welcome to this reflection coming from Killin Manse. Well, on Monday we'll know who the new Prime Minister is. I'm sure many of you can't wait for that. Sorry, being sarcastic. I found it interesting that a member of the public was interviewed on one of the news channels about the whole thing, and the quotation was, "I wouldn't trust any of them." And I'm sure many people feel that about politicians. On the other side, I would say, who would want to be a politician in this day and age, and with all the events going on and the crises that we face? It's almost an impossible job. But it's about trust, isn't it? And we seem to have lost that at the moment in our politicians. Now, last week I was talking about the accusation that Jesus predicted the end of the world and he got that wrong, and therefore why should we take him at all seriously? And I tried to explain as we went through some verses in Mark chapter 13 that what is normally seen as a prophecy of the end, and some people interpret that as the end of the world, a lot of that had to do with the fall of Jerusalem in AD 70, and we went through some of that. I also talked about apocalyptic language, because when we think of the apocalypse, we think of a great war or destruction. But the word in Greek just means to be revealed, that which is revealed, a truth that is seen. And I made the point that often in the scriptures, we look at the present with the eye of the future, or changing the metaphor. The future is a window that sheds some light on the present. And what matters is the present. So yes, Christians believe in the consummation of all things as history comes to its final conclusion under God's will and through God's providence. But Jesus didn't predict that for then and there. There was a limited focus, but there are other things that are related to this. So I'm going to continue looking at some verses in Mark's Gospel following on from last week. So this is Mark 13 and it's verse 24. Jesus again. "But in those days after that suffering, the sun will be darkened and the moon will not give its light, and the stars will be falling from heaven, and the powers in the heavens will be shaken." Typical apocalyptic language. It's heightened rhetoric, it's full of symbolism and heightened, very vivid metaphor to make the point, to emphasize the point. "Then they will see the Son of Man coming in clouds with great power and glory. Then he will send out the angels and gather his elect from the four winds, from the ends of the earth to the ends of heaven." Now, maybe I'm right in seeing the previous verses as applying to the fall of Jerusalem. But what about this? Is this not clear that this is about the end of time? The sun being darkened, the moon not giving its light, stars falling from heaven, and the Son of Man coming in clouds with great power and glory, and the gathering in of the elect. Well, yes and no. The title Son of Man, we tend to think of Jesus as Son of God, but the title Son of Man was a self-referential title. Jesus adopted that for himself. Nobody else called him that. Only Jesus referred to himself as the Son of Man. And it's obvious from this passage and from others that Jesus was inspired by Daniel. Now I want to read a little bit of Daniel chapter 7. And here again we have apocalyptic language, because there's an apocalyptic vision of a great struggle, a struggle between good and evil, and light and darkness, and full of symbolism. But at one point Daniel says this: "I saw one like a son of man coming with the clouds of heaven." Does that sound familiar? That's exactly the words used in Mark. "And he came to the Ancient of Days," that's the Aramaic phrase for God, "and was presented before him. To him was given dominion and glory and kingship, that all peoples, nations and languages should serve him. His dominion is an everlasting dominion that shall not pass away, and his kingship is one that shall never be destroyed. So whoever this Son of Man is in Daniel, it's a semi-divine figure at least, and given a kingdom that will last forever. And if Jesus is identifying with that, then he's using the Son of Man in a very deliberate fashion as one who has authority and is appointed in this way. So what are we going to make of this? You'll note that in Daniel, coming with clouds doesn't mean from an earthly perspective, because when we think of this referring to the end of everything, when it says they will see the Son of Man coming in clouds, we think of here we are on earth and Jesus is going to come back, right? But in Daniel, the perspective is in heaven. So the coming with clouds is to the throne of God. That's the view in Daniel. So could that be when Jesus is quoting that, what he has in mind is the victory he has in the resurrection, and then of course the ascension into heaven, where he goes back to his heavenly Father. Because in Daniel there's three things. There's the struggle and the suffering going on in this great battle. Then there's vindication, or the vindication of the Son of Man, and the glorification of the Son of Man. Because the Son of Man comes with clouds to heaven and is at the right-hand side of the Ancient of Days, God. So if Jesus is claiming that, what he's saying is, right, those of you who are living here at this time will know this is what's going to unfold. Yes, there's going to be the cross and the tribulation, but I will be vindicated. I will be raised from the dead. I will ascend to my heavenly Father's throne, and I will sit with him. So the passage is not about Jesus coming in clouds to end the world here and now, or whenever it takes place. It's actually a reference to what Christ accomplished through his death, his resurrection, and his ascension back to heaven. And that puts a completely different twist on it. And that's why it's linked in, of course, with the events in relation to Jerusalem, because Jesus was talking about the events that would soon take place. He wasn't talking about the end of the world. And that then brings us to, and then he will send out his angels and gather his elect from the four winds, from the ends of the earth to the ends of heaven. Now, on face value, that looks perfect for a view that, Jesus was expecting the end. And yet, to talk about his elect is a typically Jewish way of talking about ordinary believers. Could this be, and of course the word translated here, angels, can just mean messengers, because that's what angels are. Are the disciples not called to be messengers of the kingdom? So could this not be referring to the fact that once Jesus is resurrected and ascended back to heaven, we're then into the age of the church. And the age of the church is for God's elect to go out into the world and to gather in those who believe and to bring them in to the kingdom. That's the incredible mission. So there's a great excitement here for me, because it's the way we see things. And I want to say this to you. Jesus initiated the kingdom, and he talked about it, he proclaimed that. And we can see that initiation in his life and ministry. But the kingdom wasn't effectuated until the resurrection, and then with Pentecost, the Spirit coming upon the church to empower the church to go into the world. And then it will be consummated at the end of history. So you will have three movements here. So when we think of Jesus proclaiming the end of the world, it's to miss the mark, because the kingdom is initiated, it's then effectuated, and it will be consummated in the future. So Jesus didn't predict the end of the world, he predicted the end of the age, an age. So one age is past. The age of the Jewish people, with the consolidation of the view there was only the one God, and with the Torah, the law, and all of that. And then along with that comes Jesus, and through his ministry there's a new age going out into the world to bring people into the kingdom of God. It's an exciting and dynamic movement here. So in a sense we have to look at things stereoscopically. Two eyes. One sees the imminent future, one sees the ultimate future, and they're fused together in the person of Jesus. He represents the eternal now. All of history converges on him, and all the future converges on him. And we look at the Easter events, we look at the Christ event and realise we've got a prism through which to see and understand the whole of reality. Now I know this is complicated and it's deep, but it's also exciting, and it maybe takes years to unpack, but this is why the Christian faith is so alive and has so much to offer. I hope some of that has excited you and whetted your appetite for you to explore further. But this Christian faith is an incredible faith, an incredible worldview, and it's full of good things for us to learn and to grow in. Once again, thank you for watching and listening, and may you experience the eternal now in the days of this week as you realise that the Christ that we follow is the Christ of history, but also the Christ of the future. May his grace be with you all. Amen.